Hi all. In this video, I'll be talking about some of the aspects of assignment one. So, as part of assignment one, we are implementing a version management software called Git. So, how Git works and what is the core idea behind Git commands. Most of the part was covered by Dr. Cisneros in his video. So, I'll quickly go over some of the structures that are there in the provided handout. So on the screen, you can see that I have opened the handout.c++ that's provided with the assignment. And majorly, this assignment is about GitHub. So the way we work in GitHub is that every project, assume that you are working on, is called as repository. This is nothing but same as a folder or a directory, depending upon which operating system you're using. Windows, it's folder; Linux or Ubuntu, it's a directory. So we call it as directory. Okay, so think of directory as a folder in Windows or Mac or the other operating system machines. What would be typically there in a directory? Every directory will have a name, whatever the name of the directory it is. And inside directory, you will find files like F1, F2, and so on. So similarly, mimicking what a repository or a directory is, we already have a structure called as directory. So like how we have been seeing classes throughout the first two or three classes of 202. Structures are nothing but classes except the access modifier difference. So we have a structure called directory, and this directory kind of has a name, and this is something like a folder name, and then we have a vector of files. Okay, so the thing is, all these files, we are representing them in the form of a vector. F1 for the first file, F2 for the second file, and so on. This is pretty much about directory. Now, there's another structure for a file. Okay. Now, what does a file typically contain? For instance, you can check the file that was already given to us, which is called as f1.file. So in the f1.file that's already been provided to us in the assignment handout, you can see that file is nothing but some strings, which are, for example, in this file, there are strings like 15 strings. So file is nothing but a series of strings, we can say, or series of lines or strings, the same thing. So every file will have a name. For instance, whatever the file f1 is there, this f1 is the name of the file. And when we open the file, again, this is also a vector. And the 0th element in the vector is the first line that you see. First element is the second line that you see, and so on. This is also internal vector for us. So, so far, we have a custom object or data type called directory through a structure. And then we have a custom data type called file, which contains name and a vector of lines. These two are the main structures. And I'll come back to the, I'll quickly touch base upon the structure position as well. So if you notice, let's say I'm making a change here. What is the change? In which line am I making the change? I'm making on the 10th line. And I'm making the change at the starting character on the 10th line. That means 0th character on the 10th line. Okay. So let me change 4 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I change it. The first 4 characters starting at character 0. 4 characters I changed on line number 10 and on file F1. So in what line did I just make the change? Line number 10. In what column did I make the change? I made the change at the 0th position, or the first column, 0th. How many characters did I change? I changed 4 characters. And what is the file? File name is F1. So structure is a position is a structure which is keeping track of this information. What changes I made, how many characters I changed, from where did the changes begin at, and in which file did I made these changes. And when we say file here, file is a structure having a name and the content. Okay, so this is the information that we are typically saving in something called as position. So these are the 3 structures that we'll be essentially using throughout the assignment. And now I've already discussed about parse command, string compare, string length, etc. I'll talk about the other functions just to give some motivation to solve the assignment. So the first function is make directory. Okay. And if you see the handout, it's clearly given in the handout by Dr. Cisneros. Yeah. So we will be giving a directory with these commands like git init directory, git clone directory, etc. And if you read the command instructions or usage on page number 4, typically you will create a new directory or you will execute make directory function when there is a clone command, because you will be making a copy of existing directory as a new directory. And then whenever it's an init, git init followed by whatever the name it is, then also you'll be creating a new directory. So you have to go through these usage instructions where it is clearly given that when you will be creating a new directory or creating a new repository. And again, directory, repository, all these are interchangeably referring to the term or the structure that's given for us here called as directory. And if you see, Dr. C gave some comments as well saying that repository and directory are the same. So please follow the helpful comments as well as the assignment PDF instructions. Now, what are the parameters that we are giving to make directory? We are giving a name. This should be the directory name. And there is also a vector already. So let's say there is already a vector called directories. And this vector is, let's say, something like this. It contains folders called as test1 is one folder, test2 is another folder, and so on. It contains folders. And vectors also start at indices like this. Okay. Now, each of this test1, test2, in turn, they are coming from a structure called directory. Okay. And like we discussed, every directory has a name. To get the name of test1, we can do test1.name. To get the files of test1, we can do test1.files. And this is again a vector for you. So be careful. Directories is a vector, and every entry in the directory is coming from the structured directory. Okay. So now the goal of make directory, again, this is again like clearly outlined in the handout, what needs to be done. So if I'm giving a name saying that I want to create this directory, the first thing that we have to do is we have to check whether this directory, whatever the name I'm giving, so this make directory is taking two parameters, name and directories vector. So our duty is to check through each folder, is this folder same as the name that I'm passing? Check, check, and so on. Keep on checking. Okay. If it's not, if it's not there in this vectors list, for example, the name I'm passing is test. So test1 name, test, they are different. Test2 name, test, they are different. So like that, you have to compare. And always remember, test1 is a structure of directory. To get the string value of the name of the directory, you have to go one step inside and access the name member of the structure. So in this way, you have to keep on checking. And once you figured out that whatever you are looking for is not there, again, directory is a structure. You have a structure here. So create a structure object, add it to the vector. And the vector that you want to add it to would be directories. So all these instructions are given for you in the handout. Please go through it. And coming to find directory. Find directory, again, it's like a subpart of make directory. So what we are doing is in find directory is given the name, we check whether the directory is there or not. If it's there, we'll return what is the index value of it. For example, if I'm looking for test2, the index value of test2 is 1. So that should be returned for find directory. So both make directory and find directory are almost similar. The only difference is that in make directory, we create an object and add it to vector of directories. And this is pretty much about make directory and find directory. Now, similar to make directory and find directory, there is another function called as find file in directory. Okay. So find file in directory. Again, here we are giving a name of the file. So find, yeah, and one directory name. So what we are giving is we are giving a folder, and let's assume this folder object is called dir and name is test, and there are a vector of files like this. It should be a 1D vector, but I'm showing it as 2D vector. So yeah, so this is the name. These are the vector of files, and I'm giving name. This is the name of file. Okay. So what we have to do again, we have to loop through each of these file objects present in the directory dot files. Okay. So you have to loop through this vector and see whether the name of the file, how do you get the name of the file? Again, everything is structured from here on. If file is a structure that you are looking at, to access the name from that structure, you have to do file.name. So do it and see if this name and this name, file names are matching or not. If they are matching, then you are finding the file in the directory. So that's pretty much. And I will leave these two functions for you to figure out, like searching the file and replacing the file. Now I'll talk about add file to directory. So add file to directory. So again, these two are like find directory, make directory. So this part is find direct file. Now add file. Again, we have to search if file is in directory or not. If not, add it. So this part, adding a file to a directory, adding a directory to directories, almost same, because all you have to know is like from the structure, you have to access the vector. Once you know vector, recall on how we inserted and removed from a vector. So what are the functions? We majorly use two functions on how to insert or how to delete in the vector and so on. So we need what, like how to, insert something into the vector part function. And this right here, remove file from a directory. Again, mostly like all the functions are interdependent on one on the other. So for removing the file from a directory, first you have to find out whether the file is there in the directory or not. For finding file, whether the file is there in the directory, you already have a function called find file in directory. So use find file in directory, get the index where the file is there, and understand or learn about the vector function which helps you to remove an element from a certain index and take care of the remaining indices as well. So that will help you in removing a file from the directory. So all these five functions that we just discussed, make directory, find directory, add file to directory, find file in directory, remove file from directory, all of them are like at the core, they're using vectors. So vectors are something like arrays, but dynamically adjustable, and vectors have a function called size. Use that function and come up with solution or logic for these five functions. So writing these five functions will make it like a lot easier. So be careful with these five functions and get them correct. And these functions, search in file, replace in file, you should be searching like whether a given pattern is there in a file or not, and then you should be replacing a given pattern with whatever the command that we are giving in replace, etc. So you're on your own on these two functions. Please go through the assignment handout and let me know if you have any questions. And after implementing all the functions, I would suggest you to go through the test cases in the code grade canvas. Going through test cases will give you an idea like what is the input that a program should accept and how the output should look like. So that makes it easier for you to understand, what's happening behind the scenes. And yeah, go through the handout as well. And yeah, all these are the commands that you should go through carefully. So whenever if there is a command called add, you should add file contents to that index and so on. So be careful with all these commands and make use of the time available for you to the best possibility and give it a try. That's all I can say. Good luck. Thank you.